Hi, I'm author Liz Lazarus with my recent novel Dawn Before Darkness, and you're with One Final Twist.
We are here today with Liz Lazarus, a new author to me. You are not new to the game at all. To talk about a book, Dawn Before Darkness, that really got my gizzard in a way that I was not expecting. It was fun. It was intense. I was frustrated. And there are a lot of like subtopics inside of this book that I kind of want to talk about. But before we get started, why don't you tell everybody the premise of the book?
So the book is my fourth novel, is about a vet tech named Dawn Smith, and she meets a young man. She kind of thinks he's a Prince Charming, and as they begin to date, she catches him in a series of lies. One so undeniable that she breaks up with him. And you would think, okay, game over. They broke up, but he refuses to accept the breakup. And he starts to stalk and harass her so severely that she has to get a restraining order. And then to make matters worse, he sues for guardianship and conservatorship of her mother. And you may say, well, how can he do that? He's not family. But it's not a question of can he do it, it's can he win? And all he has to do is make her look incompetent or irresponsible, and all of a sudden her mom can be taken away. And so it plays out from there. It is based on real events in my life, as well as me interviewing women who had stalkers.
So you have been stalked. I'm gonna go look up
No,
the
no, I
book.
luckily I have not. So I always thought this book would be a stalker story. And my friend Dawn, hence Dawn Before Darkness, had a stalker and she told me about it. And she even let me like read his text messages and listen to some of the voicemails. And so that's what I adapted. And then beyond that, I interviewed 9 other women who had had stalkers. And so all of their stories become my supervillain. But while I was writing the book, I was battling for guardianship of my mom, a real story. And so the legal part in the book, the frustration with the legal system, the fact that a stranger can fight you for your own mother is real because that was what was happening to me. And so I think writing was cathartic for me to put that into the book.
Do you ever wonder why our legal system is so frustrating? I mean, I do.
I didn't know it was this bad. And I'm happy to tell more of the backstory if you want to hear it. I had no idea. And I've had reviewers say the legal part can't possibly be true. And I'm like, oh no, it's true. What I went through was worse than what Dawn went through. And there are actually some other families who are suing some of the bad actors in my case. And they're alleged bad actors. They haven't been convicted, but I thought about joining the lawsuits. I still might. But the other thing I thought about doing was writing about it and making this more known, how easy it was for my mother to be taken from us.
It's really interesting how, like, we read about lies, but lies really cause mud to fly and it starts a wheel turning, and whoever's the best liar wins.
And whoever's a step ahead. And, I couldn't figure out why I kept getting curveballs. And just to give you in brief, what had happened was a family member sued for guardianship and conservatorship of mom. And the same family member had had mom put her all of her assets in an irrevocable trust, had had mom sign her power of attorney, all without my knowledge. And then she sued for guardianship and conservatorship. And it took 2 years to get to court. But when we finally got there, the judge said, well, there's discord in the family. We'll just put mom under a third party professional guardian. And I came to find out this woman had no professional background as far as training, credentials, any medical background. And on my mom's watch, she was neglected. She was permanently crippled. And the guardian eventually resigned and named a successor guardian. And then my family member didn't ask for guardianship. And I met with a successor guardian. I had a really bad feeling about him. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going through this again. And so I said, no, I need to be her guardian. And we went back to court. That same judge who had taken mom away recused himself because mom was in the same facility that his father had been in. And so then we lost more time going to a whole new county. By then I had a new lawyer. And finally, the new judge, and this is after years and thousands of dollars, said that I had priority as the daughter. And frankly, discord between family members was not enough reason to take her away. But the years were lost, the money was lost. And so in the book, the bad guy sues for guardianship of Dawn's mother. And he just is trying to prove she's unfit. And if he can do that, she'll lose.
And that's one thing we can't talk about too. At the end of it is the reason kind of behind it. But I said, no, as all of those pieces were getting revealed. I
Hmm.
doubt those were good. Those were good reveals.
They were good. And, real life, some of those pieces were happening, right? Of people conspiring together. And, there's money involved, there's power involved, control. And that whole time when we were going through the legal part, I was no longer allowed to take mom out of the facility. So she became institutionalized, which was the most unfair part of all.
I can't believe this happens in real life. So you said you've heard from people that, you know, say the legal part, can't be true. Obviously it is. Have you heard from anybody either on the stalker portion or the legal guardianship portion that really said, really related to your story, good or bad?
I Two things. Yeah, I've had a couple people who've had guardianship issues, and in fact, I recently spoke at a women's event. There were about 200 women there, and I was overwhelmed with how many women came up to me afterward when they were buying the book and we were doing a signing that told me about similar aging parent, family dynamic issues. And so if this sheds a light on the fact that if you're a parent or, a child of an aging parent, to get your power of attorney in order, get your personal representative in order, to get all that in order before your competency can be challenged, it's a cautionary tale. On the stalker side, I had no experience with that. But women who have had stalkers have said they understood how helpless Dawn felt because it's almost like the person, the guy in this case, has to do something so egregious for the law to step in. And in my case, the bad guy knew just that line, right? Of where to not cross the line, what not to say. At one point in the book, he lets himself into the house, and because the door wasn't locked, he said, "Oh, I was just doing a wellness check on her." And the police didn't really do anything. And that came from a real woman's story that her bad guy, her stalker, a stranger, let himself into her house. And because the door wasn't locked and she had not filed a restraining order, he didn't get pressed charges. He walked away from that event.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with it, but from what I've read in books and, seen on TV, yeah, it's the police really have to prove that something is happening before they'll do anything to fix it, which sadly, yeah. So hopefully this book will help some people. Um, so we know how the book or how the idea for the book came. Is this something you had been thinking about for a while, or kind of as things were happening with your mom, and then you just decided to put the stalker in there? How did the book come together?
That's a great question. So, being my fourth book, I knew I wanted to write the stalker story. And for me, I have to know the beginning that grabs you. Hopefully, it's my prologue. I have to know the characters, especially the protagonist and the antagonist, and the twist ending. And that I all knew. And it was really going to be more of a stalker story. And then, as my real guardianship case happened, I started to think, how can I combine the two? And when I came up with the idea that the stalker goes after the mom, which is plausible, then I was like, okay, game on. And then writing it went really fast.
So how long does it typically take you to write a book from idea to finish?
It's probably about 6 months. This one a little bit longer. My first three books have come out. The first one came out in 2016, and then about every 2 years one would come out, and then this one had a pause. I mean, good news, I got married. Yay. Bad news, I was fighting a guardianship battle. So this one took a little bit longer to come out, and I wanted it resolved before I released the book. And so this one did take a bit longer.
That's really fast though to write it in 6 months. I mean, I've talked to a lot of authors and it takes them, a year or more to write. So can you talk about your writing process? Do you have a certain time of the day or a certain process you use?
Yeah, and I guess I should clarify 6 months to write, but then there's the editing, right? There's the content editing
Right.
and the copy editing and the beta readers and the proofreading. And then like that takes almost as long, if not longer, usually longer than because you're waiting on other people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so so all the putting of a book together is much longer. But my process is I outline, I use Excel, like like on steroids, color coded lines, columns. I leave a column for where I have to follow up on a clue. I put the date. I'm really meticulous with my outline. And funny enough, I can write out of order if I do that. And then I interview people. So, like interviewing the women who had stalkers in this case, or, interviewing my friend who was the vet tech because Dawn is a vet tech. And so getting those stories. So, a lot of my content comes from interviewing people in the professions that I'm talking about or who have had an experience I want to learn about.
When you finish a book, do you miss your characters? Like when it's done, good, bad, or ugly, they're like your people, you know what they look like, their mannerisms by the time you finish, or are you just like, even when there's a bad guy, are you happy he's done, or do you miss them all?
I've never thought about that. They're still with me. I can pull them up whenever I want. Like Laura from my first book is still with me. So, yeah, I guess I have a whole little cast of characters that run around with me. So no, I don't miss them because I can talk to them or see them whenever I want.
From, I think Malice your first book?
Free of malice, yes.
Free of Malice. Um, from there to now, how has your writing process changed? And are you happier with the way you're evolving?
What a good question. I think I've gotten better. I think part of it is that I hear my editors in my brain when I'm writing. So my first editor always said, "Are we advancing the story? Like anything I put in there that slowed the story down? Are we?" And so as I'm writing, I think about that. Are we advancing the story? Or, the number one rule, show, don't tell. So I think about that. So I think my writing has gotten better. My editors have gotten better. I've used different people with each book. Uh, so yeah, you'll have to tell me, but I think from Free of Malice to now Dawn Before Darkness, I think each one has gotten better.
Let's talk about the marketing piece of it because every author has a little bit different way of going about it, and some have more support from their publishers and editors than others. So, and I've been seeing on Instagram a ton of book openings or box openings of
Mhm.
your book with the goodies, and it's just I see a couple of them a day. So you
I
must be
know,
sending out
good. Yay.
quite a few of them.
Yeah.
Um, how does that work? Do you do all that yourself, or do you have support from your publisher or a marketing specialist?
Well, a lot, you end up having to do a lot yourself, no matter what. And I guess unless you're a John Grisham type. So I had not done much on Instagram before. And a fellow author had recommended who's Sabrina Dax, who's been in charge of my Instagram PR. And so we brainstormed about what would go in the book box, which you've seen, this chocolate and a candle.
Mhm.
That for me, that was like, let's go for the senses. The cover's beautiful, that gets your eyes, let's get your taste, let's get your smell, let's go for the senses. And so yeah, we put together, myself and a crew put together the book boxes and sent them out. And Sabrina did all the organization of who they would go to. And I was surprised at how much it's showing up on Instagram, and I'm pleased. And it's now led to reviews on Goodreads. Not so many on Amazon yet, and maybe they'll come, but because the book didn't launch until yesterday, you
Mhm.
can't actually put a review on Amazon yet. So I'm
Right.
I'm hoping all that buzz on Instagram and Goodreads makes its way over to Amazon. But you just never know what's that one thing that's going to pop a book. And I do have fans from the previous books, from doing a book tour with the first book to book talks to my HubSpot. So it's all angles of just trying to get someone to know about the book in the first place or decide to go listen to it or read it.
This
Yeah.
was my first time with Sabrina. I'd never seen her anywhere before.
Mhm.
And she found me. Like it was, she reached
Mhm.
out and found me. So but now, I mean, now I'm on her radar and she's on my
Mhm.
radar. So I'll pay attention. But you guys did, it was a good book box. It really was.
Thank you. Thank you. We were very, very thoughtful about what we wanted to put in it. I was worried the candy bars might melt, right? It's springtime, but
Yeah.
they were robust and I got to sample everything. So that was fun. I picked
Nice.
scents that I liked and I picked the taste that I liked. And yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing about Amazon is, yeah, you can't publish a review until the book actually publishes. So you just have to hope people that have reviewed somewhere else go back and put it on Amazon.
Well,
Um,
I guess that'll be my one request is thank you for
yes.
the reviews on Goodreads and Instagram. And let's make sure Amazon doesn't forget because so many people don't do Instagram, right? So they or don't do social and they count just on
Mhm.
Amazon. And Amazon's such a, monopoly when it comes to books.
We see a lot. I see a lot of people that will complain about it, about Amazon. And then you have a lot of authors who use Thomas and Mercer and they can't get their books, put in a bookstore. And so
Mhm.
it's like a delicate balance. I think it's a no-win situation. And I think for an author, you're competing against 4 million plus books coming out every year. So you're in an uphill battle and you're going to step on toes and nobody's going to be happy all of the time. Like it's the game you got to play.
Mhm.
Right. And this book being so personal, now that you know the story, we wanted to put extra effort into the PR. The first one was based on a real event, and the second and third were just pure fiction and fun. And this one really is a passion project for me. And so that's why we said, look, let's go bigger with the marketing. We can, so let's do it.
So, well, from what I understand about the first three books too, is that you have a woman, they tend to be a woman fighting impossible situations. That's kind of like what I read in the thing. So what brings you to that, to having, that you have a strong woman in your books? What is I mean, is that something that you, maybe your mom, instilled in you that you can be strong? Is that, you're going to come out ahead on this and you put these kind of characters in there? Or, is it maybe a lesson for a daughter, a sister, somebody that you want to inspire?
Well, I think I never intended to be an author. I went to engineering school. I spent my career at General Electric, and then later became a consultant. I've been in a healthcare startup, two different ones. So, I mean, my life is usually in the business world. The writing started actually from an event in college, and Free of Malice was based on real events. A guy broke into my house when I was in college, my senior year, and all these things happening to me, right? I was super lucky. I managed to fight him off, and you don't know if you're going to freeze or fight. I never even thought about having someone break in. And afterward, I had said to a relative who was a volunteer deputy, if I had owned a gun, I would have shot him. And not that I owned firearms, we didn't grow up with firearms, but just that need to get back. And he said to me, well, the way you described it, when he finally left, because the fighting was taking too long and I wasn't giving up and I was screaming and I was being really loud. He said, by the time you could have gotten to a gun and shot him, he was retreating off your property and you would have shot him in the back. That's not self-defense. And I was shocked. I was like, wait a minute, I have a right to shoot him. He broke into my house. And so it just made me really curious what's that line between self-defense and vigilantism? And the book stayed with me. The idea of the book stayed with me, that question. And then my parents came up. My dad turned that house into Fort Knox. Like nobody was getting in that house again. And my mom asked a question really out of left field. And I thought, what made you ask that question? And boy, would that be a killer ending for a book. And so the idea of the book stayed with me all through college and then all through most of my career. And it just wouldn't leave me alone. So finally, I actually took a leave of absence from GE to write it. And it was going to be one and done. And it would have been, except the response to it was good. And I thought, well, okay, well, then I'll do another one. And so the idea of a strong female character, I think, came from that. And also, all of my books educate. If there's a tagline for me, it's entertain, of course, but also educate. And like for Dawn Before Darkness, it's educating in what happens if you have a stalker, educating on how to fight guardianship and conservatorship abuse. So each one of my books you'll find has a social thing.
One
I
that,
love that in a book. Sorry.
go ahead, Sherry. Go ahead.
So, I love that in a book where you have a strong female character, because we need more strong women to be out in the world and be visible for everybody. But then also learning from it, either you can relate to it because it happened to you, or happened to a friend, or you don't have any personal experience, but this is what it's like. And it's just a way of educating myself about things that I don't know about. So thank you very much for writing those type of books. I love them.
And the other thing I guess I should add for Free of Malice was that I started to journal because I had PTSD. I didn't know what that word was, but I knew I was now afraid of the dark. I was afraid of knives because we found out after the fact he had a knife. I would check the house every nook and cranny before I would come in and relax. And so, and it was like, well, you're lucky you weren't raped. Get over it. And I felt that too. I was like, okay, you're lucky. Get over it. And I wasn't getting over it. And nobody thought about therapy back then. This was, back in college. And so writing was my therapy, truly. And that's what really started the book. And then the idea from the twist ending from my mom and that whole question of could I have shot him and what would have happened if I had, all shows up in the book.
So your first and this book are based on true events. How'd you come up with the ideas for your second and third book?
So the second book, I really wasn't going to do another book. I was one and done. And then I got invited to a self-defense class that a friend of mine, who's a detective and a police officer, taught. And the learnings in that class were so good. I thought I should write about this. And so my second book is about a young girl named Jackie, who has a best friend in school, in high school. And she's kind of the nerd. He's the cool jock. And they ignore each other. He ignores her, I should say, in school. But after class, they're friends. And 10 years later, he gets arrested for allegedly killing a girl. And the media dubs him the Snapchat killer. And instead of going for a court trial, he takes a plea deal, hence plea for justice. And then he reaches out to Jackie from prison, who has since become a paralegal, to help prove he's innocent. And that one's told from two points of view, from me, the bad guy, who you don't know if is her friend or not, and from Jackie's point of view. And for her, it started with me taking that self-defense class. And also, I was the smart girl in school. I joked that when I went to Georgia Tech and the ratio was 7 guys to 1 girl, that I got pretty overnight. But I mean, I was the nerdy smart girl in school. So there's some of Jackie in that, like having a bad body image and bad self-image and how it grows with her getting more confidence because she's learning to take care of herself. And you find out in the end if it's Aaron or what happened. And then the third book, I thought, what can I do to make a sympathetic character? And it was right when the Malaysian flight disappeared. And I thought, worse than losing a husband is not knowing if you've lost a husband. And so that's what sparked that idea. And that one's a crime story. That one is a young girl shows up in my main character, Juliana's restaurant. Juliana's husband has disappeared. He was a charter pilot, and his plane has disappeared for the last 3 months. And the search has stopped, and nobody knows. And so she doesn't know if she should mourn or not. And a young girl shows up in her restaurant after hours and says, we have to talk. He's not who you think he is. And before anything more can happen, a bullet comes through the window and kills the girl. So that one's told from Juliana's point of view, where she doesn't know if she should mourn her husband and who's that girl talking about, and this detective Grant, who is investigating the murder. And for that one, my friend Jennifer, who taught the self-defense class, was my detective Grant. We went through hours and hours of what it would take to do a police investigation because, of course, I didn't know.
Have you thought about bringing all these women together for an adventure?
No. Yeah, that'd be fun, right? And I really do have to put a strong man in. If I do another book, I really do have to put a strong man in here as well. But Grant is a strong man. I mean, he's a solid, good detective. So he's a hero too.
One thing that I liked about this book, about Dawn Before Darkness, is that Dawn starts out, I'm in love, everything is good. And then, no, I believe in good. Nope, it's going to be okay. Good things are going to happen. And then she digs in, like she lets her, I don't know, your sixth sense kind of kick in and start figuring things out. And she really had to dig in, and she grew as a character through the book. And it was a lot because there were times where I wanted to wring her neck, a little bit like, come on, Dawn, this can't be true. But,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed her as a character, watching her, even though she went through a lot. But this book did too, put you through all of the emotions.
It did. And I guess being naive about dating, I was that way back in the day. I remember dating this guy who told me he was an MD, PhD, spoke 3 languages. I met him in a bar in Atlanta. And then come to find out, Google was just being released, come to find out that he had just graduated high school. He wasn't even in college yet. So I'm like, okay. And this guy when we were out on a date, he came back to my place and he told me he had broken all 10 commandments. And the first thing I go to is, oh, he's committed adultery. And then I'm thinking, oh, he's committed murder. And I'm alone in my apartment with him. So I think, especially as we're younger, we've made bad dating choices. Dawn has too. And then I think her need to fiercely protect her mother came from my need to fiercely protect my mother. And I do think she wasn't smart about keeping her lawyer who was not serving her well. But in my case, I kid you not, I had four different lawyers, and it took that. And I was slow to replace two of them that were not doing a good job. But you're a little worried about doing that. If you keep replacing your lawyers, then you look like you're the crazy one. So I do think she kept a bad lawyer too long, but I totally get it because I did it.
So, what kind of books do you like to read?
I read mostly thrillers, and I know you're supposed to broaden your repertoire, but I don't like romance. I really don't like sci-fi. I don't like things that aren't real in this world because I like to try to figure things out, and so it has to have real world rules. Otherwise, you can't figure it out. So I'm pretty much a thriller reader myself.
I am too. I will read rom-coms and like contemporary fiction and historical fiction too, but thrillers are definitely my number one. It's just what do you like best about thrillers?
I don't, I mean, I read Nancy Drew as a kid. I read Encyclopedia Brown as a kid. I really like trying to figure things out. And maybe that's why I became an engineer, for my career. I really like figuring out puzzles. And for me, writing a book is a big puzzle, especially if you can throw a twist in that people don't see. And to answer your question, what I like best of all is a twist I did not see coming that was earned, not something that's so far-fetched nobody would have understood it or gotten it,
Hmm.
but a twist that's really good and earned and made me realize, oh, I missed it and I shouldn't have. And that doesn't happen much. I'm the worst to watch a movie with because I'm talking and guessing and it's not fun. But because I'm just that curious.
There were a couple brown chicken, brown cow moments in this book, and does that make sense when I say that? We say that here, brown chicken,
Yeah.
chicken, wow, wow. There were a couple little
Oh.
sexy moments in the
Uh-huh.
book. And so, I mean, I'm not complaining. I was said, whoo. Um, were
Mhm.
those hard to write because it isn't normally what you find in a thriller?
You mean the kind of the sexy,
Yeah, yeah.
the camping one? I didn't think they were that extreme. I didn't
No,
because I
they
didn't get
weren't, but for
yeah.
for what we
Hard to write, yeah, a little bit
yeah,
because because I don't really want to get that graphic, and then of course
yeah.
everybody thinks that's about your own life, and yeah, and of course I my third book, it was during COVID. I read it to my mother over video because I couldn't visit her in the facility, and there's not much in there, but I skipped parts that I don't want to read to her, so um. Yeah, but I've had some people say it was too racy, and it's not. Trust me, it's
No.
not. R. And I've had one friend say, "Well, you should have put more in there." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's a thriller. We aren't getting racy in thrillers. That's not what we do."
Yeah, and everybody likes the book a little bit differently. So what's perfect for somebody is going to be the complete opposite of what someone else wants. So just have to go with what works for you in the book and people like it.
I will say, people have said it's relentless, that it's maddening, that it's emotional. Um, I didn't realize how maddening and anger evoking it was and how emotional it was. Now, I was living it, and now that you know the real story, I was living a very angering situation that my mom was trapped in the system and I couldn't get her out. But for me, writing was cathartic. So to hear readers, I had a friend tell me the other day he had to put it down. I thought, wow, I didn't realize how heavy it was. And my husband at one point said, he read it early. He was one of the first readers. He said, "You need to give Don a break." And I thought about it because he's smart. He's truly one of the smartest people I know. And I thought, if he thinks that, maybe I should. And then I thought, I'm not, because now you understand. I didn't get a break, and it
Hmm.
didn't feel true to me. And I was a bit selfish as the author. I'm like, no, I didn't get a break. I'm not giving her a break until the end.
Was there a particular scene that you had to back out? You said this is too much. We definitely need you get to a place where it hit too close to home.
No, I don't think so. I don't think I had to cut anything out. I wanted my villain to be full on, and he's not necessarily the villain that you think of as far as dangerous. He's dangerous because he uses the law to his advantage. And that is a completely different kind of danger, and it's a realistic danger. So no, I wanted him full throttle.
So the book came out yesterday, and you've obviously received some early reviews.
Mhm.
What are the next couple weeks look like? Are you going on any book events, signing any books?
It's been mostly podcasts. So I have a publicist who's just dedicated to podcasts. So doing a lot of that. We didn't do a really big book launch because I learned after my first one, yeah, it's nice to have a big party, but then what? And I'm not all about look at me buy my book. So it's more about doing exactly what we're doing here, which is letting people know about the book and why I wrote it. And I've got a couple talking engagements. I had the one I spoke about that had 300 women, and I just came off of booking another one, but it won't be for another couple months. So speaking engagements in front of a large audience I like, and just doing the podcasts. And I do find that most people, you tell me, choose their books either by referral or by hearing the author. And so that's just my steadfast belief is let's let people hear from me or hear from you that they like the book. And that's usually how people choose what they read next.
Yeah, yeah, word of mouth, and then just especially on Instagram, seeing the book, the
Mhm.
pretty pictures, the pretty book boxes, all of that really catch people's attention.
Mhm.
Um, do you still have a day job, or are you a full-time writer?
I, not this year. I haven't had the day job. Our healthcare startup is still trying to get our FDA clearance. And so I do more of the operational side. I've been lucky there because the engineering team who's doing the design, the heavy design and FDA clearance is in play right now. We're just getting close to where I'm going to click in and help with the operational part. So I've had this nice window where I've been able to just really focus on the book, the finishing it off. You saw the cover; it's beautiful. We went through that
Mhm.
cover design and then doing the marketing. Oh, thank you for bringing it. I left it downstairs. Yeah, I love the cover. Josh Worth was the designer. He did such a nice job.
So what are people's reaction, either that you work with or, friends when they find out that you're a writer?
Funny enough, they don't ever ask about the engineering degree or the MBA or the 20 years at GE or the or any of the hard stuff that really made my money in life. They all ask about the books, and I love it. It's totally fine. So yeah, we end up talking a lot more about books than anything else.
Have you just been going along regular old day and had the moment where you're like, that is the best new idea for the next book? I've got to write this down. And where was the strangest moment that something came to you?
In past books, or what I'm thinking for my next one.
Period, overall. Like if you've just been there and be like, ting, there it is.
There's something, and there's probably stuff in the past I haven't thought of, but for if I do a fifth book, there is a real life villain in our lives right now that has done some pretty outrageous things. And I keep saying, well, how can I not write the next one? Like he's writing the script for me. So yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't really give you a good answer. Outrageous things.
I
I'll
know.
have to think about it.
Like, I think it's what I read. I will
Mhm.
walk into, so I went and I find myself doing this. I was in the gas station. I was coming back from Chicago. Sherry and I had been to Chicago. And I go into
Mhm.
the gas station. There's a police officer in front of me, and he
Mhm.
has this weapon on his hip, and he's on his phone. And I was like, boom, I could have that gun from you in less than 2 seconds. And I think about all these things. I know it's what I read. I'm like, how can I disarm that person? What are they going to do? Where should I
Mhm.
sit? I'm like this all of the time. And I do. I
Yeah.
think about it constantly, not to debunk what I've read, because when I read, I lean all the way in. You cannot, I mean, even if there's a plot hole, I will just be like, yeah, that's going to solve itself in a minute. I'm just going to keep going. But when I'm out in the real world, I mean, like I will check for cameras. I want to know, like when we were in Chicago, I said to Sherry, nobody's looking up. How are they not aware of their situation? How do they not know who's behind them?
Oh, you were my kind of girl. I'm going to have you be a beta reader going forward. I really, funny enough, my friend was visiting yesterday and I took her to the airport and we were at the stoplight and across from us a guy got out of his car, walked to the car next to him, and started pounding on the window. And I'm like, "Oh, he's mad about something. That car that he's pounding on did something to make him mad." And I did say to my friend, I said, "Quick, get out your camera, film it. Let's, we want to film it." And then he got back in his car, and I'm like, let's watch and see what he's going to do. He's going to cut off that other car, right? He's going to do something. And then he just took a right turn and left. And I thought we were both kind of disappointed. We're like, we want to see something. But
Right.
yeah, no, but I'm very situationally aware. But that came from that attack in college. I've now done self-defense training. I do things to make sure that that doesn't happen to me again.
Are you going to any book events like BoucherCon or any of these conferences coming up so we kind of know where to look for you?
I should get more plugged into that. And I would love your advice if that's worthwhile. I've talked to some authors that say it is, and others that say it's overwhelming that you don't really get traction. So yeah, I should look more into if that would make sense. So far, my publicist hasn't really pushed it.
Yeah, there's a lot of book conferences. Some of the bigger ones, BoucherCon, Left Coast Crime, Malice Domestic. Um, there's one on the East Coast with a crab for or lobster for a logo. There's tons of them out there, and then there's also smaller ones that are focused on like this town or like the LA Book Festival or something like that. I mean,
Hmm.
I've been going to them for 3 or 4 years, and I go to usually two, maybe three a year.
Hmm.
And I love them because yes, they can be overwhelming, and they're
Hmm.
a couple days of panels, and you can kind of make it how you want. You can
Hmm.
go to the panels and listen, or you can not go to the panels and just meet up with people. But Teresa and I actually met at BoucherCon
Yeah.
2 years ago, and
Hmm.
we didn't know each other before, and now we talk all the time because you can
Well,
just
I may have to recruit you too. Like I don't have a street team yet. Like if you I need a
there you
street
go.
team, right? We may have to talk about making this something bigger than it is. I do book talks, right? When invited. I've
Hmm.
been doing the podcasts. I go to Thriller Fest. And then there is the Decatur Book Festival in Atlanta, and we
Hmm.
submitted 2 copies there. Don't know if that'll happen or not. Um, and yeah, I'm members of Sisters in Crime and that type of thing. So I do probably more with the Atlanta chapter, the Atlanta Writers
Hmm.
Group, and Sisters in Crime. But the bigger conferences, other than Thriller Fest, I have to admit I don't have that much experience.
So I did you go to Thriller Fest this year?
Not this year, because the
Okay.
book wasn't out. I'd gone the year prior. Mhm.
Okay, because I went this year, and somebody asked me about one of the best things that happened in May, and I had to think about it, and then I'm like Thriller Fest, and I'm like that seems like so long ago, but it really
Yeah.
wasn't. It was like 3 weeks.
Now, are you a writer as well?
No, no. So I went just for the Thriller Fest part of it. I didn't go for the beginning part of the week about craft and pitch fest and all that. I
Hmm.
would say Thriller Fest is a very different vibe than any of the other conferences I've been to, and I've been to BoucherCon and Left Coast Crime. I haven't been to some of the other ones, but from what I gather, they're very much more like BoucherCon. Thriller
Hmm.
Fest is very focused on authors and aspiring authors and teaching crafts and everything, and you get a lot of
Hmm.
big name authors there.
Hmm.
There aren't too many people like me that are just readers that go.
Hmm.
Obviously there are because I went, but at BoucherCon, you'll find it's a lot heavier on the readers. There's
Hmm.
I don't know if it's like a 50-50 or 70-30 or what exactly the difference is, or the ratio between readers and authors is, but to me, I love Thriller Fest one because you get to meet and listen to all these great, amazing um, authors and meet upcoming authors. But
Hmm.
BoucherCon is really more, I'll say friendly, but that's not really the right way to say it. But it's definitely
Hmm.
more approachable because
Hmm.
you have all kinds of authors at all different levels of their career. You have aspiring authors all the way up to best-selling authors, and everybody kind of in the middle. And there are tons of readers there, and they have they have what they call speed dating. And so, and BoucherCon usually has two sections of this, where you and another author partner go around, and there's like 20 tables or something like that. And you each get like a minute or two to pitch your book. And everybody at the table, there's like 8 people at the table or something like that. And then so you get to talk about your book in front of 20 tables at, 8 per table. And I love it because the authors usually have like bookmarks and things like that, so you can remember what it is, because because as somebody participating, you're just getting like bombarded with everything.
Right.
So it's nice to have like a bookmark or something to remind yourself later. But yeah, I think I don't know from the author side, but I would think it would be great exposure to be able to do something like that and just get in front of people who want to know about new authors and new books, because everybody going to speed dating wants to find the next book.
I'm writing it down.
I would call it very networky.
Yes.
Well, and I will say my corporate training has come in quite handy to be interviewed and to network and to talk about the books. So, has it already happened this year? I don't even know. We should look at
No,
BoucherCon.
BoucherCon is in the fall. Usually it's the weekend of Labor Day. This year it's later in Calgary in October. Next year it's in Washington, D.C. I think that first week in September. Left Coast Crime is usually in March, April. I think this year it was like the last week in February. And it's always somewhere on the West Coast. Next year I think it might be in Arizona. This year it was in San Francisco. So and that's kind of a smaller conference than BoucherCon, but still the same friendly vibe. Still have tons of readers, tons of authors, tons of chances to meet people. They always have a hospitality suite where sometimes there's snacks or whatever, but regardless, there's tables that you can sit down, and you just walk up to someone's table and say, "Hey, can I sit with you for a few minutes?"
What do you do? Tell me about
Yeah.
you. Well, okay, so BoucherCon's on my radar. If you want to go to the Decatur Book Festival, which is huge, open invite. We have guest rooms. So come to Atlanta and check out Decatur Book Festival. And yeah, you're talking me into going to more festivals. So good.
Well, before we get off here, why don't you tell us all of your handles and where people can get a signed book or where they can find you?
So the best place to find me is my website, lizlazarus.com, and that has links to where you can purchase the book. And all books are audiobook, ebook, and paperback. And what I like about that is that for the audiobook, we have a 5-minute sample for each one. This one, Dawn Before Darkness, was narrated by a woman named Jill Smith. Smith is a coincidence about the last name, and she's great. Her voice I could listen to for hours. And then you can also, if you register to my website with your email, you can get a couple first chapters at no charge. And I don't send out spam mail. The only time I send out emails is when a new book is coming out. And yeah, paperback, audio, or ebook, and everything's on my website.
We're super glad to talk to you, and we'll have to do this again, whatever comes next, because you can't stop at 4.
I can't stop at 4.
No.
You gotta keep going.
And my friend that I took to the airport, she's like, because I told her after yesterday, I'm like, I'm not doing this again. I'm not. And she's like, yeah, you will. You just have to, it's like having a baby, I guess, right? I've never had children, but it's like, after you just gave birth, someone's going to ask you if you're having another one. You're like, no, that was too hard. But I would definitely like to keep up with you too. You're so plugged into the reader community. And for me, it's all about that. It's how do you get to know the readers, and how do they get to know more about why I write? Because that's important.
Yeah. Well, we're right here. If you need us, come and get us.
Yeah.
If you need, just let us know.
So appreciate you inviting me. I really do.
Well, I'm glad to talk to you about it, because this was a really good book. I'll hold up one more time. Dawn Before Darkness. Y'all need to check it out for sure.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.